Hi everyone, Cheryl here. Today is Saturday, April 12th. It is the Libra full moon today, and in honor of that, I'm wearing my red. So I just wanted to share some information today, a couple of things actually, with this full moon. The energy you may have noticed lately has been running a little bit high. People might be more agitated, or relationships might be strained a little bit. With the sun in Aries and the moon in Libra, it's sort of emphasizing relationships versus independence. And we have a T square between the sun and the moon. We have Mars in Cancer. And so, Mars in Cancer is not very good at confrontation, but yet its emotions run high. And so it can be a very trying time right now. And you may have noticed this the last week or two. So my message about that is to maybe try and be more patient with people, and maybe not communicating and blurting things out too quickly, to maybe think about things before you respond to a situation, and to put a little thought into it. Sometimes Aries energy can be too forceful and maybe blurt things out, being too blunt and honest, and it can hurt people's feelings. So this is a test right now, I think, and it's also calling people to um, heal themselves with setting healthy boundaries within relationships. The theme right now is, self versus others, or self versus relationships. And then with the Mars sort of in the middle at that T square, it's sort of challenging us to be mindful of our emotional state, and to be honest about what we want to convey emotionally. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that. I do conduct new moon and full moon meditations every month for my clients that are interested. I do that in person. I don't do it online, but I do hold those on a regular basis. So that was one thing I wanted to talk about. But the main thing I really wanted to share today was to talk about radionics. Now, I don't know um, how much people know about radionics, but it is a frequency transmitting system and device that can transmit healing frequencies to people at a distance. Now, I have experimented with radionics since the 80s, actually, and my husband and I had built our own radionic equipment. I still have that, but I've sort of upgraded now, and I'm using digital or computer version that has all of the frequencies built in, and I can, upload photographs for my witness. And in radionics, we call a representation of the person, the witness. Now, the witness can be it can be a DNA sample like fingernails or hair, saliva, blood, whatever the person is going to represent the person's frequency. But it can also be handwriting that the person has done, uh, and it can be a photograph. So I I'm sharing that with you. So in radionics, there is, traditionally there is a radionics box, I guess, for lack of a better word, that has it can be run electronically, but it doesn't have to be run electronically. It can be run with a representation of electronics and symbols, and you can power it electrically or battery operated. There's different ways that radionics machines can be built. I have experimented with several of them, and they all work. But what you have is a series of dials. You have a sensing plate where you can set the rate um, for whatever the frequency is that you're trying to transmit to the person. And the person, is represented by the witness. So that can be a sample, a DNA sample, or the photograph or the handwriting. And that is placed on the unit. And then, of course, what you are transmitting to the person can be placed in the other vessel that is sending the frequency to the witness. I used to use, in the 80s, I have homeopathic samples of various substances that would transmit via the radionics to the person. And I would use that. But, it's impossible to have every homeopathic substance for everything that is out there. So you can actually use things that are written down, and you can use, photographs on the radionics machine as well. So I was thinking about that, and I thought, well, I was experimenting. I decided to do some experimenting on myself. And the reason I did it, I guess I was motivated because of budget. Everybody has a budget these days. There was a supplement that I wanted to try, but it was a bit costly. And I thought, well, what I'll try doing is I took my own photograph, and I didn't use the radionic equipment. I just thought, let's try this and see what happens. So I took my photograph, and I took a photograph of the substance, or a photograph of the supplement, and I put that with my photograph, and I wrote down the name of the substance under the photograph of the supplement, just so there was no doubt about what it was. And I placed those two photographs together and shielded it. Now, in radionics, it's important to keep the frequencies of the witness and the substance kind of pure and clean. And so there are vessels used, usually metallic or metal containers, to sort of isolate the frequencies within those vessels. And it's transmitted through the wiring. So I just thought, well, I'll take the two photographs, slap them together, and I put it in some foil. So I sandwiched it in a foil envelope. And actually, I was quite surprised at how quickly I could feel the effects of that. And so I'm experimenting with different substances now, and I'm feeling the effects of it. And so I'm sharing this with you today because this is a very economical way of trying it out, trying some frequency healing that is radionics based. Maybe it's not traditional, but I can't see why it wouldn't work in all cases, depending on what you're working on and the severity of what your condition is. I mean, I'm not saying this is a cure-all for all disease. I'm not saying that. So don't misinterpret that. But I do think that you can get some effects and some benefits from whatever you feel you might need. Whether that be, certain supplements, or whether you've got a certain condition that you need extra support with, there's no reason why you couldn't try this out and do your own experimentation. It's a very similar concept to the Rife equipment. I do have Rife equipment that I use for my clients, and the Rife equipment that I have, and the database that I have has over 60,000 ailments and frequencies that go with these ailments, and detoxing substances such as, bacteria and parasites and heavy metals, etc. And there are also frequencies for healing various ailments, etc. And so the principle with the Rife is, again, you're using a witness or a DNA sample. In the case of my Rife equipment, it has a remote, and so the generator is connected to the actual remote, which has two magnetic plates where you slip the DNA sample in. When I usually use fingernails, those are more stable, and you transmit through the generator the frequencies that are on the program, because there are, like I say, there's a database of over 60,000 remedies or frequency remedies that you transmit to the remote, and the DNA sample is in the remote. So through quantum entanglement and quantum mechanics, we're transmitting the healing frequencies to the person, even though they're not here. We're using their witness, just like in radionics, you're using a witness. And so it's the same principle. It's just that in Rife, I have a far wider range of things that I can do that, you can't do with radionics exactly. However, I thought that this was worth sharing, because if somebody was wanting to experiment and try this for themselves and to get some relief from something, or to see how it works for them, there's no harm in doing this, and there's only benefit that can be gained, and the proof is in the pudding. I mean, if you feel a benefit from it, then you know it's working. So I'm pretty sensitive, and not everybody has the same level of sensitivity, and so not everybody might feel it the same way. And my suggestion would be to just make sure that it is shielded, that you have it in a foil envelope. And the other thing I would suggest is to not try too many things simultaneously. In fact, I would only recommend that you try one supplement or remedy at a time with your picture. I just think that that way you're not fogging and clouding the issue. If you start getting too many things together, you're not going to be sure what's working and what's not working. So if you isolate one substance at a time, then you can sort of say, okay, this made a difference, and then you can go on to another one and see how that one works, and maybe, oh, that one didn't work so great. So it could help you to just sort of try one at a time. Now, that's not to say you can't print off half a dozen pictures of yourself and have 6 different supplements and have 6 different foil envelopes, and put them in separate shielded foil envelopes. I don't see a problem with doing that. I just don't think you should combine the pictures altogether. I think that it may cloud the issue, but I still wonder, though, about doing too many at one time, because you're not going to know what's working and what's not. However, once you've pinpointed what works, you then could do multiples simultaneously. But I just thought this was an economical way of trying something out and experimenting with it. It's not such a stretch from the Rife equipment, which I know works really well, and the Radionics, which I also know works very well. So this isn't a stretch from that. And it is a way for you to create your own healing economically, and you can experiment for yourself. Anyway, I wanted to share that with you, and I also just wanted to share that information about the full moon. And hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.